welcome back once again to an episode of Refuse to Fail, the podcast where we find out about people's journeys through the world of sport in their own words, and we get to see it and live it through their eyes, through their words. Once again, I'm joined by another incredible guest. She's got 48 caps for Wales. I've actually discovered she's going to win the 50th one against Scotland in Murrayfield, if all things go according to plan. Wales Sevens representative, World Cup competitor, 9 years in the Welsh jersey. She's one of Squish Rugby's favourite rugby players, so that's probably the highest accolade you'll ever get. Bristol Bears scrum half, Keira Bevan. How are you, ma'am? Welcome to the show.
I'm good, thank you. That was a really good intro.
But what's new with you? How's life? What are you up to right now?
Yeah, life is good. Just basically coming to and from Bristol. I basically spend most of my time travelling on the M4, which is a bit of a ball ache. But yeah, obviously love it and wouldn't want to do anything else at the minute. So yeah, can't complain.
You and a lot of the Welsh girls seem to end up in that Bristol squad. Have you not figured out like a carpool row yet?
Well, we had a really good one last year, but then obviously like Jazz and Kaylee went away to Seven, so we lost two of them there. Siwan and Talia left, so it's just me, Snowy, and Gwen now, and obviously Alicia's injured. So yeah, we're dropping like flies.
How rude of them! They thought, Bristol, the bright lights of Bristol's not enough. I've got to go to New Zealand or Dubai or Hong Kong.
Yeah, so rude.
I know. They're missing out as well. There's no place quite like Bristol.
Yeah, exactly.
So what you must be getting close to Six Nations camp just now, or we're still focused on the 15s, the Premier 15s at the moment?
Yeah, I've still got a few challenging fixtures coming up with Bristol at the minute. Obviously, we've got Saracens this weekend, so that's going to be a tough one for us. And obviously, Gloucester the week after, so it's pretty juicy. And then we kind of switch a little bit of focus to Wales, and I think we're going to be dipping in and out for a couple of weeks until Six Nations comes around. So yeah.
It's always nice when they give you a big fixture like Saracens than a derby game just before you have to focus on.
I know.
Camp for Wales.
I don't know who decided the Premier 15 structure, like fixture-wise, was a good one for us because we've been stitched up royally. Sarries, Gloucester. Oh, no, thank you.
At least you're not having to do ridiculous travel. Like you're not up to Loughborough or anything like that, I suppose.
Yeah, we've only got one pretty bad away trip before Six Nations, and that is Loughborough. But I think that's like mid-March, so we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Well, before we get into the deep and juicy gossip, we have to do the usual quick fires where my lovely listeners get to judge you on your very basic choices, and you'll get a few tweets about it. But they're really simple. First thing that comes into your head, say what you see almost. Example: would you prefer a tea or a coffee in the morning?
Coffee.
I think every time I've spoken to one of you women's players, you're all like coffee, because this was before the pro era when I recorded last season, and you were all doing like 18-hour work days.
Oh yeah.
So you were all like coffee, and more coffee.
Yeah, I could have a cup of tea, but it would have to be like of an evening to maybe just unwind, not first thing in the morning.
No, you need the coffee in the morning.
Yeah.
Right. So night out or a night in?
Night in.
Ooh, interesting. Right, this one I love answering because everybody always answers the same way. If you had to get rid of one tomorrow, so either the sport of rugby or dogs, which one would you get rid of?
Rugby.
Everybody says their sport. Okay, you're unwinding for your night with your cup of tea. Are you more likely to go for a Netflix series or a movie?
Netflix series at the minute. Yeah.
What's the go-to at the moment?
Me and Gwen are watching. I don't know if it's pronounced Dynasty or Dynasty. I think it's Dynasty. Have you heard of it?
I think it depends on where you're from. I think if you're American, it's Dynasty, but Dynasty is probably
Dynasty then, yeah.
I've been ruined by American TV, so I'd say Dynasty, but I think Dynasty is how you say it. Right. Oh, what's the next one? You're in the car on many of your travels for one of your games or training. You are going to go with either a playlist or radio. What's your go-to?
Playlist would be my go-to. Nice.
Yeah. Right. Socks and sliders. Is it socially acceptable? Yes or no?
Yes, acceptable.
Love that. Right, you're trying to get something organised in the group chat. Are you more likely to be that person that goes on the FaceTime, or are you just letting the texts endlessly scroll?
For a group chat, I would let the text scroll, but if I was trying to organise something with someone, I'd have to FaceTime and just get it out of the way. It's easier then. Yeah.
I think I'm going to have to take that approach for this podcast getting guests on. I'm just going to FaceTime people at the Blues.
I would just FaceTime, especially one-on-one. It's got to be a FaceTime. Yeah.
I love the efficiency of the guests so far, because everybody's saying that. Right, sweet or salted popcorn with a movie?
Sweet. Wait,
Good answer.
is it sweet and salted, or just which one is it?
You can get sweet. You can get both if you're feeling like a renegade, but
No, I'd go sweet. Yeah, sweet.
that's Mavericks that choose sweet and salted. Like a
Mm.
little game of roulette when you'd be in the cinema. You wouldn't know what you're about to get.
Yeah, I know. It's the same with the bag of Revels, isn't it?
Just, I like to spice up life a little bit every now and again. Just I
Yeah,
get both popcorn.
I don't know what I'm gonna get.
Oh, so which social media would you delete tomorrow? Twitter or Instagram? As in for the world, not just for yourself.
Twitter, probably.
I think everybody agrees.
Yeah.
Right, if you could only be in one universe for the rest of your life, would you rather be in Star Wars or Lord of the Rings?
Lord of the Rings. I've never watched any of them. Is that bad?
To be honest with you, yeah, terrible, but that's my nerdy history coming out.
Yeah, I think Lord of the Rings is a bit more normal though, innit? I think.
If you fancy believing in mystical powers of rings and jewelry.
Oh, I
But
don't
it's
know.
like, Keira, I'm already thinking of a series of we let Keira Bevan review Star Wars and Lord of the Rings, like a 30-second snippet, because that sounds like a great TikTok summary channel.
Yeah, I think I could do that.
Good. I will pay for the Blu-ray DVD for you. That will be my contribution.
I'll take it.
What a result, see? We're producing content on the Refuse to Fail channel. Don't say I'm not
Yeah.
good to you. Keira Bevan's 30-second movie reviews. What's your go-to Disney film?
Ooh. Probably I'd have to go like a classic, so probably Jungle Book or Beauty and the Beast is a good one.
Great shout. Both
Yeah.
very good films. Always get emotional when I hear the song.
Yeah.
For Beauty and the Beast. Did you like the remake version, or do you stick to the classic cartoon one?
I have watched it,
Mm-hmm.
but nothing beats a classic, does it? A Disney classic.
True.
It's like when they do Peter Pan and they try and like, it's not as good as the original one.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite quote that you live by?
Not really. I'm not really a quotey type of person, so probably not. No.
Not a live, laugh, love in the living room, no.
No. Not really.
No. Oh, we'll have to find you some because there's some incredible ones around there.
Yeah.
And lastly, of the true quick fires, what is your go-to fast food outlet? Like if you're ever just having a day where you're like, I'm having a cheat day, what's your go-to?
McDonald's breakfast.
I love that. Sausage, bacon, and egg McMuffin.
Oh, I just got sausage and egg McMuffin with a hash brown.
You're a woman of culture, Keira. I love this. Right, so that is the end of the true quick fire. It's the easy as that, and I don't think you're going to get any tweets or messages being like, you don't like that? You're a monster.
I can't be paid for that, surely.
No, you'll get the coach go. I can't believe you're stacking off rugby. But
yeah, but dogs, isn't it? Dogs.
Exactly. Yeah. Cuddles over rugby is better unless you're a forward. Then you get cuddles at rugby, and that's pretty much how it goes. But... So the two questions I gave you a bit of time to look at. Your favorite piece of memorabilia you've managed to collect on your travels now, and this doesn't have to be like a medal or a trophy or a jersey. This can be I stole the alarm clock from the room because it had a Welsh flag printed on it or something like that. What's your answer?
I did steal a dragon from the bus because I was told it was our mascot, but it wasn't. It was just the guy's dragon that he had on his bus at the time. Oh. So I stole that, and I felt quite bad when I found out. But then,
if you're watching now, email the podcast and we'll find you a dragon.
Yeah,
I will pay off Keira's dragon teddy debt.
Yeah, I'll return it. I'll get you a better one. Do you mean rugby-wise then?
It can be whatever. It can be anything at all. Just a souvenir you've collected, and you're like, this unlocks so many memories. Whenever I look at it.
Well, I done a lot of shopping in New Zealand by default. And I'm not really like a jewelry type of person. Like obviously I wear a watch and stuff, but then like necklaces and stuff normally are no for me. But then I bought this like New Zealand greenstone kiwi necklace.
Yeah.
And I've not taken it off since buying it. So I think that's probably, I've got it on now. It's like this probably I'll always wear now, I think, just because, New Zealand.
That's so cool. Jono, I was there for the Lions tour, and I also bought a greenstone. I don't have mine on today, but I got one in the shape of the fisher as well.
Oh,
For
did you?
Safe
I think
Travels
I
Abroad.
saw that one. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's pretty cool, isn't it? So
I
yeah,
know.
I think
That's a
probably that.
that's a cool
Yeah.
piece of memorabilia though, especially from that time, and obviously that because
Mm.
that was probably the biggest Women's World Cup to date as well. So.
Yeah, massive. So it's nice that I can just have that always
Mhm.
on, really.
Oh, I love that. That's so wholesome that you managed to get that. It's something that you can have
Mm.
24/7 on.
Yeah.
And now, what is one piece of memorabilia, rugby-wise, or maybe you don't even know what it is yet, but you're looking to add? Is it going to be something from an event, or?
Um. Well, I like to get tattoos.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, and like again in New Zealand, I got a kiwi tattooed on my arm. So I would probably, yeah, like if I did another big sporting event that I'm like really proud of, I
Mhm.
would probably get something to represent that again, tattoo wise, because it's quite hard to find um something to wear. So like, yeah, I'd probably just get a tattoo of something that represents the
That's cool.
country. But obviously the next World Cup's in England, and I don't know how I feel about that.
We're
So,
not getting the St. George's Cross on the.
yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. So maybe we won't do it.
Just get like a small, like sounds like almost Wales, just or just like
Yeah.
the distance between like your house and the border, and just be like 25 miles away. That's what it was.
Yeah, exactly. I think if obviously I think you mentioned my 50th cap coming up. So if I
Mhm.
was to get my 50th that weekend, I would probably get the date of that tattooed on me, probably. But
Mhm.
like not just like the actual date, like in a nice font and
Yeah.
stuff like that. It'd make it look good.
Size 12 times New Roman font, please, just the
Straight
date.
on my forehead, and then like my 50th.
Oh, that would be good. Hopefully, I'm actually trying to get to that game, so hopefully I'll be able to see you there and celebrate with you
Yeah.
via the
Yeah.
stands of just the lone Scottish warrior going absolutely ballistic for you running out. But we'll
Yeah.
see.
I need all the support I can get, so it's fine. You
Well,
can have
I
a
hope
seat
it's
with
them.
the
I
parents.
believe. I believe you'll do it. I think you're good enough. So,
Oh,
and
thank
that's
you.
all that counts is the
Fingers
opinion of
crossed.
one random kid in Scotland. But
Hey, that's all right. That's all I need.
there we go. That's the quick fires and the memorabilia section done. So there's only one place you can really start, especially when you're talking to a Welsh rugby legend, and that is you're in the valleys, rugby growing up. When was the first time you touched the rugby ball? Was it before you could walk? Was it as the second you took your first step and your dad tried to turn it into a goose step? Or how did rugby come about to you?
Well, I can't do a goosey, so I don't know. I think earliest memory is probably when I was like 7 or 8. Um,
Mhm.
but I know my dad probably tried sooner than that to get me kicking a rugby ball of some sort. Yeah. He's massive into his rugby as well, so that's probably something that we share. And yeah, obviously it's not all we talk about, but like it's a big part of our lives, especially like
Mhm.
I've moved out now, so like when I go back home, um, we like to stick on a rugby game if the men are playing. So yeah, it's nice to have that with him.
Oh, I love that. So when was the first time you were in a rugby team? Were you one of these situations where there was a girl playing on the young boys team, or luckily was there like a women's team near you at the time, or when you were younger?
I played with the boys, so I remember doing tag rugby with the
Mhm.
boys at my local in Pontarddulais, and yeah, obviously I grew up with all of them as well, so it was quite easy to just, they were all of my best friends, so it was easy to just interlink with them like that. And then had to stop playing then when I went to comprehensive school, and yeah, I found it quite hard actually to get back into rugby. But yeah, luckily I found a way, and yeah, here I am.
I was going to say because I remember reading and it was you didn't actually properly commit until quite late on for a rugby
Yeah.
player. So how was that coming about? So you're at comprehensive school. Was it just other things got in the way, or was it you didn't really want to go down the rugby route? You just always saw it as like a bit of fun that you had as like you said, like a talking point with your dad, and it was
Yeah.
never something you really pursued. Or just tell us how school was when if you're trying to navigate rugby, or you're just doing other things at that time. What was Keira Bevan, the human being, up to?
Um, Not a lot really. Like I obviously tried to find like other interests and stuff. So I did a lot of like long distance running and stuff.
Mhm.
Which has probably helped me rugby wise. But yeah, I think I just probably just done like the PE in sports and just kind of kept ticking over that way really. And it wasn't until I was 16 then where my mum's friend, she was like, Keira needs to get back into rugby kind of thing. She was like, I've seen this, she needs to go to it. And you know, when you're so stubborn and adamant, you're like, nah, I'm not going. Like, typical teenager. I was like, I don't want to do it anymore. And I obviously went. And yeah, I've never looked back since. And it kind of escalated fairly quickly then from then. So yeah, like I've never looked back, and that was probably in like early 2014.
Mm.
So I had a massive break from not doing any rugby at all, and then kind of
how long was that? 5 years no rugby, really, was it not? Or something?
Yeah, which is quite a long time. I suppose it was all of my comprehensive years really. I didn't touch a rugby ball, didn't pick it up, like didn't want to know really. I was not interested at all.
It's quite impressive because that's a year when a lot of your skills kind of function, because
Yeah.
when you're like minis rugby, you're just kind of running around in a field, and you're like you said, like your mum and dad are just sort of throwing you on a field on a Sunday morning, and you don't really know what's going on. So
yeah, 100%.
So you must have had to learn fast there. But talk about 2014. I've promised Keira's not got a copy of my notes here. This isn't prepped, but I actually had written down the 2014 year, because like you said, you came back in 2014 to rugby, and you were already, by the end of that year, you were already sort of in the Wales Sevens contention squad and getting selected for squads. So
yeah,
we talk about not learning the fundamental age for learning the skills. You obviously pick them up pretty quickly. How was that 2014 year for you to going back, and then when do you start getting messages from coaches and things like this, and you start going, oh, hold on, why has this guy got Wales coach in his email address when he's emailing me and stuff like that?
Yeah, it all happened like fairly quickly. I just did like Ospreys under 18s regional and stuff, didn't think anything of anything. And then like as the year went on, obviously the Women's World Cup was in France that year as well. And if I'm being totally honest, didn't even know that was going on. Obviously social media wise, it wasn't as that big, and I was even playing rugby in Wales and I didn't have a clue that our national team were competing like across the English Channel kind of thing. So yeah, and then as the year went on, I went to Sweden with the under-18 sevens with Wales, and Rhys Edwards, who was Wales women's head coach at the time, he kind of just invited me into the sevens program, and I ended up going to Dubai to play sevens with Wales, and then got selected then in the Six Nations in 2015, and then had my first cap. And then yeah, I've ever since then, you know, like touch wood, you know, lucky enough to be ever present in the Welsh squad.
It's a pretty good 12 months for somebody there to just, how did you end up at Ospreys under 18s? Because I mean, as talented as I like to believe, as big-headed I am, I couldn't just walk up to Edinburgh under 18s and go, yeah, just give me a shot. But so how does that come about? Was there like almost like war style recruitment for, like, you know, where Ospreys under 18 needs you, can you play rugby, have you ever done sport? Or how did that come about? Like you said, I think your mum's friend sort of pointed you at it. So did she just go, I know somebody, or is it a case of this was purely I'm just going to pick this up and try it again?
Well, I think it was like a trial, and obviously she's seen somewhere that the Ospreys under 18s were trialing, and that it was at this location at this time, and then that's when she was kind of like, Keira needs to go to it.
Yeah.
And yeah, ever since then, like never looked back really, and I'm lucky enough now that I can call it my full-time job as well, which is really good for me. Considering, you know, other than that 5 years, rugby was my life, and now it is my life, and I get to do this full time, which is brilliant.
It's the dream. It is the absolute dream. So tell me about that first trip to Stockholm when are you 18 at this point, or are you 17?
17, yeah.
So you're 17.
Yeah.
So what's it like when somebody's sending you on a plane going, so you're representing the country and we're sending you to Sweden? How do those emotions come around when you get those calls and those texts?
I don't know. I think as a 17-year-old, you're like, oh, let's just go, like,
dance
see
a holiday,
yeah. Like, pretty sure Arbor are from Sweden as well, so it's brilliant. I just think like it was a great opportunity, and you know, if it wasn't for, I think Richie Pugh was our head coach at the time, and yeah, if it wasn't for them guys kind of believing in me, I think I was the youngest person there at the time. I think everyone else was 18. so that for them to take a bit of a risk, really, considering I literally picked it up like a couple of months before, or back up, it was a pretty big risk. And I just think I'm, grateful that they seen something in me, and yeah, I just kind of took it in my stride, I think, and obviously done something right, I think.
How was that? I step back with it. How was that first training session back on a rugby pitch then? Because I can imagine that would have felt like an absolute car crash. That first tackle, if you've not been tackled in 6 years.
Yeah. So when you're younger and you've kind of got like no fear.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what I had and where I was at. I was like, what's the worst that could happen? Whereas now you're like, oh my God, if I did that then, like, I'd probably like dislocate my shoulder or something. So like, I don't know, the fear factor was quite slim back then, whereas now it's right up here.
Now you're looking at it and you're like, run without stretching the hamstrings? You're crazy.
Yeah.
So you then, like you said, you then got to 2015 Six Nations, getting that squad call up. How were the emotions of that, and how did the drive from your Dubai and your Stockholm, how did that drive come across to getting in that Six Nations squad? Was that like after the Dubai, was there like a conscious effort of there's something for me here? Or was it a case of I'm just still having fun and people keep calling me and this is great because I keep getting to go to different places?
A bit of both, really. Like, I was just enjoying it. I knew there was no pressure on me to make the squad, but then I think in the back of my head, I knew that there was an opportunity that I could be called in. I didn't think that I would probably get my first cap, because most people who like come into the squad, unless they're like X factor, they don't tend to get much of a look in their first year. So I suppose I was just really lucky that they kind of needed another scrum half, and I was just kind of right place, right time kind of thing. And yeah, to get my first cap against England in Swansea, where I'm from, it meant the world to me, and all my family were there, so that was excellent. And I think just it's an opportunity that most people don't get, and for me, I think that was just like kind of a bit of a whirlwind, because I think England had just won the World Cup as well the year before, and our first game of the Six Nations was England at home. And you're like, oh, some big names in there. So yeah, it was a bit of a whirlwind, but yeah, I loved it.
And I was gonna say, and then how was that emotion on the day? So obviously, I'm aware that these shirt presentations get quite emotional, but I'm going to ask you about that when we talk about your first start. But coming off the bench, so obviously when you're on the bench, like you're doing your warm-ups, you're down behind the pitches, you're kind of like loosely stretching, but you're watching the game.
Yeah.
What happens when you get that call across to the other coach and they're like, tell Keira to warm up properly because she's coming on? Like, when do the emotions really start to rise for you on that day, if you can remember that far back?
It's definitely like, I feel like, when you're on the when I'm on the bench now, it's like you kind of just let the day unfold a little bit, and just you don't want to get, well, for me anyway, like I don't want to get too excited too soon, because you don't know when you're going to get on, and I think now when I'm on the bench and I'm like, it gets to that like 45, 50-minute mark, I'm like, okay, I could come on at any time now. And soon as, like, especially in Cardiff Arms Park, when you're like looking down at the pitch, because we're sat like higher up than our like management, soon as you see like the S&C or the team manager turn and look at you, you're like, I think I like, is it me? Going on? And it's like, you do, like, your heart, like, from even now, like my heart goes a little bit, and I'm like, like they could need to come on, and you only have like a split time to think about it, and like, you just take all your gear off, get down to pitch side, and before you know it, you're on the pitch. So it's quite hard to think about it. And I think I didn't appreciate back then, like, the concept of it all. I just was like, they've called my name, I'm actually going on, kind of thing. And I think if I was to get capped now, I think I would appreciate the whole experience so much more. Like, when I was, because I was still 17 when I got my first cap, so I definitely didn't appreciate what it meant back then. Like, it definitely means so much more now.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, my first 2 seasons, I was just probably took it a bit for granted a little bit,
Wow.
and now I'm like, yeah, hungrier than ever, I think, to just kind of stake a claim, I think, yeah.
I love that. I love that the drive doesn't leave. That's something when I talk to
Mm.
people, I always find that with you guys and this elite pinnacle athlete, there is just, it's not a case of you're never satisfied, but it's always a case of I've had a feel of it and I keep
Mm.
wanting more. And
Yeah.
that's something I've really taken away from this when I do stuff now, just talking to you guys. But
Mm.
so we're talking about all this stuff. You're making your Wales debut. You've been going around the world doing sevens now at this point for a bit as well.
Mm.
What's Keira Bevan, the person doing it this time? Because like you said, you're 17. So are you still in school at this point, or are you just working? Because obviously, like you said, you're only a pro player as of the past 14, 16 months.
Probably just bumming around a bit. Like, I didn't like I said earlier, like I probably thought like the situation at the time and being like, oh, I play for Wales, thought it was better than it actually was. And probably thought I was like better than I actually was. And completely neglected the fact that I would need a plan B. Or, and that's it. It would, well, a plan A in that case, because rugby was the plan B. Yeah, so I probably just completely neglected everything else and just kind of hoped one day rugby would be enough. And it only took like 8 years for rugby to be enough. But yeah, I definitely should have probably like got a job sooner and probably put a bit more energy and focus into stuff outside of rugby. I was I was very tunnel vision, and I just thought rugby was the be all and end all. And I mean, now to a certain extent, I still think that because obviously it's my job now. But when it wasn't my job, I was like rugby, 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 and completely forgot about everything else. And it wasn't probably until I was like 20, 21 where I was like, okay, it's not really where I thought it was going to be. Like, I need to get a job. And then luckily I like done like qualifications in college and stuff that allowed me to work in gyms and stuff, and like I did a lot of personal training and stuff, so luckily I did have that to fall back on. It just took me a long time to fall back on it.
I like that though, because basically your plan B was I'm not going to let plan A fail, which I quite like in a weird way.
Yeah.
What's your plan? What's your plan B? To make sure plan A works so that I don't need a plan B. That is my go-to.
Yeah, Liz and Richard weren't too happy with me being so tunnel vision with plan A, but yeah.
I love that you refer to mum and dad just as Liz and Richard. You're just like
Liz and Richard. Everyone knows Liz and Richard.
The rents.
Yeah.
Do you know there must be something about it because I obviously my main experience with women's rugby is the Scotland team. And like you've got people like you've got Sarah Bonner, her dad's like Twitter famous because he's always giving it like CB's mum was doing the rounds on like the rugby pod and stuff because she's obviously Canadian heritage coming to Scotland and then so there must be something in the water, but there's no support quite like the female international team's parents. I've seen. Did they make the trip over to New Zealand?
Pardon?
Did Liz and Richard make the trip to New Zealand?
They did make the trip to New Zealand, yeah.
Love that.
They did, yeah. They loved it. Like that, I think that's one thing I'm really lucky in. And obviously you mentioned some of the Scottish girls there. Like my parents will come everywhere. I think my dad's only missed one game, and that was in the 2017 World Cup, just because he was working. And my mum only misses the games when she's got a shopping trip on. So, and that's normally around like autumn international time, because she goes Christmas shopping with work.
She's very prepared.
Yeah, so I mean, I can't monitor her because she's buying me presents. So yeah,
you have to take the good with the bad, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly.
Just make sure you score all the tries when they're there. If they're not, just go for like the casual rating when you're.
Yeah,
the 6.5 out of 10. Just simple job. Just nothing but crisp passes, and I'll just let everybody else take the shine.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm so just. I love it when I hear stories like that because there's so much happiness and. I think I'm going to talk about that next because that leads quite nicely. So there's so much love from the external for women's sport, I feel like it's definitely more than the men's. There's a lot more. I feel like the fans and like the players, like, you know, like the accessory. Don't want to say accessory people, because they're not, like, they're very pivotal, like mums and dads.
Yeah.
No athlete can ever repay their mum and dad for the amount of travel they've done to get them to training and stuff.
Oh God, no! Like, if it wasn't for my parents, I would have struggled massively. And even up until like the last like couple of years, I would still be struggling massively. So I definitely owe a lot to them, and where I've been able to get to just purely from their support and willingness to want to help, really.
Mm. Oh, we have the same in Scotland. We only have one bus that's every half an hour. So literally every car, probably between 4:30 and 8:30, is probably somebody's mum or dad taking a kid to and from some sort of training or event.
Yeah, they're brilliant.
God bless mum and dad. That's all I'm
Yeah,
saying. God bless
100%.
Liz and Richard.
Yes.
Yeah, so I want to talk about the emotion as the team, because the accessory, and there's so much pride in what you guys have achieved, not just as the Welsh team, as international players. But talk to me about the shirt presentations when you were making that start against Italy in 2015. How were the emotions in that room? Because you get told a few days in advance of the start of the team. So when did it start to feel real? Because obviously somebody goes, "You're starting at the weekend." You're like, "Oh, sick, cheerio." But
yeah, like, I think to like my initial reaction of it is like, again, like, I was probably so naive and so young. I probably didn't think much of it, but I definitely didn't expect it, because I think the week before when we played Ireland, I literally had like 2 minutes off the bench, if that. And I don't even think I touched the ball. So I just, then to go from that to starting, I think confusion more than anything. I was like, but how was that possible? Like, I did nothing last week. But obviously grateful for the opportunity at the same time. And to go away and play in Italy, it's always fairly nip and tuck, and it is now to this day. I think, we lost 2 points to them in the Six Nations last year, so like, they're fairly close games. And as a player, like, they're the ones you want to be involved in when you actually don't know like which way it could go. But I think emotion wise, like, every time I receive a red jersey, or even when we play in an away kit, like, every time I receive it, like, it just means so much, and I don't think the feeling can ever get old. So yeah, it's always a special moment, and hopefully I get a few more.
did you get to keep the kit from your first?
Yeah, luckily, like, we've been able to keep all of our jerseys. So I think, I've got, I would say 48, but I obviously haven't got 48 because I've done a couple of swaps here and there, and
trades here and there. You've got to do trades.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I've given like a few away to like schools and stuff like that. So, but yeah,
I've got cool hooks. There's a spot. There's a spot for a red jersey there.
Hey, if you want a red jersey, you can have a red jersey.
Keira, I would be over the moon. So this shirt here is actually from a guest last year. I had the chairman of St Mirren Football Club on, and he got me a signed jersey on the stipulation it stayed up for the whole season, because I normally try to change these in and out. So I had to shake his hand and agree that it would stay on, and then that came in the post 3 weeks later.
Hey, that's not a bad deal.
So I would love Dear Refuse to Fail. Lots of love, Keira Bevan and the girls jersey.
I can sort that out for you, no stress.
You are a superstar. I am now Welsh. I will be wearing red at Murrayfield on the.
I hope so.
I am the biggest plastic fan you will ever meet, but I do it with a smile on my face.
Hey, that's all. Hey, fake it till you make it. Nah.
Now you're speaking to the choir. Hey, so sorry to interrupt the podcast. This is something I wanted to tell you about, and it's something I wanted to explain before I just go around throwing it everywhere, because this is something that was quite difficult for me to decide to do. It took a lot of deliberation and a lot of discussion with friends and family. I have now created an option where you can tip the podcast, or you can reward the podcast if you feel the podcast deserves it. There is an option down below where I went on the internet, I found this website that wants to reward content. So yeah, right, let's talk about how you're in the team now, and then the sort of hard work begins for a player at that point, because it's all about cementing your place in that international squad. How is it like, because as you said, you're doing a bit of PT, and maybe at this point you're really looking to just get games under your belt. At this point, have you made it to a Premier 15s team, or are you still working in the Ospreys setup, the women's Osprey setup, and doing internationals? Or how was that 5 years between 2015 and 2019, or 2014 to 2019?
I didn't sign for Bristol until 2019. So I played then in the Welsh Prem, which obviously I don't know if you know anything about like local rugby in Wales, but it's not probably where it needs to be. Hence why a lot of us like play over the border. So I was just playing for Swansea for the majority of that time, and luckily we were quite like a dominant force within the Welsh Prem. So yeah, I stayed with them, and obviously it was easy to get to and from training because it's only like 20 minutes away. But yeah, so that was probably between, getting capped and 2019. I was playing for Swansea, and then we had regional rugby a couple of weekends here and there throughout the year, which obviously would boost. They'd normally play them just before Six Nations, so girls would get a bit more competitive rugby before Six Nations squads were announced. Yeah. And then, a lot of our girls then had signed for Gloucester, or we had already had a couple in Bristol with Snowy and stuff. And yeah, Kim Oliver, who was the Bristol coach at the time, just texted me and asked if I wanted to join Bristol. And I thought now is probably a good time as any. I think I was 22, I think. Yes, maybe. I don't actually know. And yeah, I just thought like now is probably a good time to kind of challenge myself in a different way. I was very comfortable at Swansea. Like all the girls were like my best friends and stuff. And I obviously didn't want to kind of get stagnant and stuff. So I was like, now's a good time to kind of push my boundaries a little bit and play in a league that's competitive week in, week out. And yeah, I've been at Bristol then ever since.
And that's all she wrote. How was that decision? How was that decision though? Because obviously you do get that text from the Bristol coach, which is, I assume that's flattering in itself that people are aware of you to come and play. But is that a big decision? Because like you said, so many external factors. Once again, Keira the human at this point also has to take into account Keira the rugby player, because these two are not. I never want to say you're the same person, because there's more to life than an athlete than just the sport they play. But you know what I mean? Like there's so many external factors that you now have to consider if you make that switch. Was there a long process thinking about that one, or was it a case of I get to go play against the best with the best? So as virtue of just like osmosis, I grow. How was that decision for you when that first text came through?
My initial reaction was like, I need to do it. So it was kind of like I wanted to do it, but I knew that for a rugby purpose, I knew that I needed to as well.
Okay.
So obviously I had to like sit down with my parents and like work out like how it would actually look, because at the time I was living in Swansea, and like the traveling, it was like an hour and 40 minutes to and from Bristol. So it was just kind of working out all them sort of factors as well. But then looking at it purely from a rugby point of view, it was definitely what was needed. It was just much more professional than training once a week at a Welsh club and then playing on a weekend. Like, we were training 2-3 times a week. We had gym, S&C, physio, and then a competitive game on the weekend. So to set you up for test match rugby, it was probably exactly where you needed to be. And I think I know I personally definitely benefited from making the move, and especially in the last 2 years since like Dave has come in and we moved obviously to the high performance center. I think I've definitely seen a change again. So yeah, and obviously the level of care that we get with Bristol from an S&C and medical point of view is probably one of the best. As well as the care we get with Wales, we also get like really good care with Bristol as well. So like it's nice that there's no drop off when we're at club, because they're both equally as good as each other. And for me, that was a massive factor of making the move. Is if I had, I had a couple of like, well, pretty bad injuries in 2020, and I think if I was playing for Swansea or a Welsh team, like I would have really struggled to have the surgery that I needed and like the recovery process after it.
Yeah.
Whereas in Bristol, they paid for my surgery. Like my rehab I knew exactly what I was doing. So it was basically like being at Wales, but at club level. And I think that's the kind of, that's coming out I look at when I'm playing is like, God, what's the physio and S&C like? Because God, injury prone over here.
That's good. I love that they take such good care of you as well. I was going to ask about the injuries. So, yeah, we made it sound like there was like a nice, happy 5 years of you just skip down to training every day and just picked up Welsh jerseys with reckless abandon. But you did. So, you tore your hamstring?
Yeah.
And what was, because you had 2 really bad injuries, did you not? It was, you tore the hamstring once, and what was the other one?
Yeah, so hamstring, and then my syndesmosis on my ankle, on the other leg.
So couldn't even just have one leg, you had to do something on both.
Yeah, both.
So how does these affect you and your life? Because obviously, like you said, you're lucky enough, you're in the new Bristol High Performance Centre. That place is state of the art. There's football teams that would be proud of that facility. And
yes, very good.
But I imagine, like, even turning up to places like that, you must feel a bit more professional. The right word, you feel like a bit more. The elite's not the right word, but you know what I mean. You're walking into a place and you're like, people have invested the time in this place, so it looks like it's good. We know it's good. But how did these injuries affect you as a person and having to? Because obviously you've only just joined Bristol really at this point. You've been there 8 months, 9 months.
Yeah. So I joined obviously in 2019, and then went away with I joined in the September. I played a couple of games, then we had autumns with Wales, so we went to we played Spain, the Crochets, the Barbers, and all that sort of stuff. And then when we came back in, literally had a couple of games. Then it was Six Nations again, and then obviously COVID hit in that block. And then when we came back in the October time, I think, obviously COVID was still a massive thing, and we had no fans or stuff in the grounds, and it was very strict and things like that. So yeah, we played Exeter, first game of the season in Sandy Park, and I tore my hamstring in that game. Had surgery on that, and then had 5 months of rehab with Bristol. Went into Wales in the Six Nations in 2021, and then tore my syndesmosis about 2 weeks after coming back properly. So I played a game for Bristol, and then the week after went into Wales training, and then done my syndesmosis. So I had 2 surgeries in the space of 5 and a bit months on different body parts.
I just feel so bad for you. I know this has happened a while ago now, but you still feel bad when you hear somebody has to go, because you do what a lot of people really struggle to realize, but a lot of people also appreciate is the effort it takes to rehab as well. There's so much of a mental aspect to rehab. It's
harder than just there's different demands, don't get me wrong, but I look at the girls that are rehabbing with us at the minute, like Meg, Alicia, Gwen, and those girls, and I'm like, they're in the gym 3-4 hours a day, doing a rehab session, an upper session, physio treatment, it's conditioning, it's really, really hard. Physically it's hard, but then mentally you've always got to be switched on. Whereas it sounds bad, but when you're not injured, you just turn up, you get your gym session done, you do your skills, you do your rugby, whatever it is that you've got that day, and you can kind of go home and switch off. Whereas obviously I've moved in with Gwen, and she's had ankle surgery about 6 weeks ago, and she's always got to do something. So even when she comes home from training, she's got to ice it, game ready, power dot it or complex it, and I'm like, she never gets time to just switch off. She's just sat there massaging her scar, and I'm like, oh God,
you poor thing. I love the thought of you just sat there and like she's just massaging, you just like walk
Yeah,
up and just like give her like a slow hug. You just like, come here.
yeah, and I'm like, I feel like so bad for them because it's so hard. It's like pre-season times 10.
Yeah, that's it. It's like, yeah, it's like a never-ending preseason. You don't have that
Yeah,
because what preseason is normally a month or something. I think
yeah,
they now taper things like month, 6 weeks. So,
yeah,
but you're doing it for 6 months. Some people.
yeah, and like especially like the girls who have longer term injuries, like it's just mentally because you're not going to play for like 6 to 9 months.
Hmm.
It's that's just another element that makes it so much harder than what it needs to be.
And
So
then you've got to do preseason effectively after it as well because you're not fit
yeah,
just due to being injured.
yeah, it's on like honestly, it's the worst. It's horrible.
Well,
Mm.
touch wood, it's not going to happen again.
Yeah, not for a while.
Not for a while. But now I want to talk about the fun stuff. We had to talk about the sad bit there. How was becoming pro and getting that call about that contract and hearing, like, I want to, in my mind, I look at it as the bright light of you've
Mm,
now seen that big sign that says the stuff you worked for and you bet on yourself and it's paid off. But
mhm.
how was it for you? How was it for the rest of the girls? How was it?
Yeah, I think it was quite unique the way it happened. Obviously, Johan had just come in. He'd only been
Mm.
involved with us for a couple of months in the autumn before, so he didn't really have like much to go off either. Um, but yeah, I think there was only 12 of us that originally selected on full-time contracts, and then I think we had 12 part-time at the time. Um, so it was quite unique, and obviously we still had girls who weren't contracted, so we still had to like tailor training so that we were training in the evenings in Six Nations just so we could have time as a squad. Um, but like we were lucky enough, like as a 12 and as a 24, that we could come in during the day and get skills done, our gym and our S&C side of things done. So that was really beneficial, and to be one of the first 12 to get professionally contracted was amazing, and just really lucky that I could have been could be a part of that really. And hopefully now that's just the standard and we keep pushing, and obviously we've got more contracts given to us in the summer in the lead up to the World Cup as well, which was excellent, and hopefully we can just continue to build on the foundations that have been put in place now.
Have you noticed have you noticed the change in it since then? Obviously, I imagine first of all, like as you as a person, we'll talk about the squad as a collective as a result of this, but
Mm.
you as a person, was the first thing you thought, you're like, what do I do with all this free time? Or like how did
Yeah,
your life change resulting as becoming a pro?
definitely like more free time in the sense that like obviously I don't have to be at Bristol now till like 2:30, so it's like I've got my morning.
Yeah.
So I can just chill and kind of do what I need to do to get myself ready to go. But yeah, there's obviously still a lot of people who are working and having to find the balance then of that is quite difficult. So like that was probably the biggest change for me, is that like I've got the time to just switch off a little bit. And I think I seen in Six Nations it was quite like hard to kind of see that because we had to do both. We had to
Okay.
like be professional in the morning and then train in the evening with everyone else. Um, but obviously once everyone had their contracts come June and we started pre-season, like we were in at I think 8 o'clock. Yeah, so we got to the Vale like 8 o'clock and then we were done by 3. And
Happy days.
that's when I seen the benefit then. I was like, "Oh my god," I was like, "What do I do? What am I gonna do tonight? Like, I'm bored." But, like, it's a good boredom to have, like, because you can just switch off, like, recover properly, eat good food, um, watch back training or whatever you need to do, ready to go again the next day. So I think it wasn't probably until pre-season that I actually seen the benefit of being professional.
Yeah. And then did you notice as a squad, did you notice like just the level of rugby increasing like
Mm.
almost instantly? Because like you said, you can now
Mm.
recover better. You're not running around all the time.
Mm.
There's not you don't need to use up 24 hours in the day in the sense of every minute is dedicated to something now that you have that flexible time. How was it? How did the atmosphere change like as the squad when that happened?
Yeah, I think everyone definitely enjoyed coming to training a lot more. There was more smiles on faces. But I think it's just then, like, everyone's like nuts and bolts probably got a little bit better. Like the 1%ers of our games, like for me, probably my box kicking's got a lot better because now I can like dedicate a slot to kicking and box kicking. And it's like probably the same then for our girls, like our hookers and stuff. Like our percentages in the line outs went up because they actually had time to just throw and get timings with the jumpers and stuff. So all like the small stuff of like bits of our game that probably would let us down under fatigue got better just because we were able to put so much more time into them. And I think in June, our fitness, I think as a squad, we all got like leading into the World Cup, we all got like fitter, faster, and stronger because we were on quite like I don't want to say strict because it wasn't strict, but like we all knew exactly what we needed to do. We had a program put in place. And I think we all seen the benefits of it come the World Cup. So that like it's nice to see changes then when you've spent your like a good 6 or 7 years doing it, and then I've probably seen more changes in 7 weeks than I probably did in 7 years. Just purely because, and I think for me as well, like I said to some of the girls, like for me it was a mindset shift as well. I was like, well, it's my job now, like I have to be good at it.
Yeah.
Like obviously I wanted to be good at it before, but there was always like excuses, be like, well, it's not my job, like I'm not professional, like I can get away with not doing that. Whereas now I'm like, no, I have to be good at it. Like there's no excuses anymore. So that was probably a mindset shift that I had definitely the last like 13 months. Yeah.
Wow. I love hearing stuff like that, especially when you talk about the mindset, that the human psyche of sport becoming professional always interests me because, like you say, there's like a caveat to not being in the top percent because like, oh, this lifestyle I've worked so hard for can now get taken away from me in a sense.
Yeah.
That like there's not an endless amount of contracts as much as everybody wishes there was.
No, and like Johan's very, very much like it is what it is. Like it's very black and white. Like if you're not performing, like you could not have, like when contracts come around to be renewed, like you could not have one because you haven't done X, Y, Z and you're not performing. So, and now that it's a career in Wales for people, there's going to be more like young girls, like, you know, chomping at the bit to get a contract. So the pressure's there from that sense as well. Like if you're not performing and he sees potential in a young player that's like right on your heels, like you're at risk of losing it. So yeah, that's in the back of your mind as well. Like just because you've got a contract, now's not the time to be complacent with it.
No, I agree, and I think you show the real fortitude that you have to keep this mentality alive. And I mean, like you say yourself, I could just do 8 till 3 and be finished, but you're like, then I'm going home, I'm rehabbing, I'm watching skills back, I'm just doing these 1%ers.
Yeah.
So now we're going to talk about a specific game that will make me shed a single tear. But before that, I love how you know what it is straight away.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about the journey to the World Cup. So obviously it was an emotional roller coaster for a lot of teams to get there. But how was the energy for yourself when first of all, when you get selected to the World Cup training camp? Like, how was that? Because that's when, obviously, I assume, because it basically is a funnel process, isn't it? You're just kind of whittling down the team till you've got the best team. How was that, and how's the mindset when you go into these World Cup training camps? Because does it feel like a normal training camp to you, or do you have that pressure?
Like for me, that was like the first pre-season that I'd actually done, weirdly, because I'd always gone like back and forth with 7s and 15s. So it was nice to just know this is exactly what I'm doing. And yeah, like there was probably about 35 of us in the training squad in the lead up to the World Cup, and we had like 4-week blocks, and it was horrific because it was so hot as well. Like June was boiling. not June, July, sorry. So we came in July the 1st, and July was just so hot. Like,
Whereabouts were you training in Cardiff, or?
Yeah, I know, in Cardiff. It was boiling. Like, we had these like heavy contact tops on, and it was just dire. But it was good because, like I said, like we were probably like the fittest and strongest that we were going in. Like, everyone made gains, like regardless of how we were before, everyone had made good gains moving forward to the World Cup. So yeah, that's pleasing to see. But it was just it was a slog. Like I think Johan and Whiff and just every coach, I think they wanted to kill us, like in a good way. Like, they wanted to know, like, it's hard. Like, test rugby is hard.
Yeah.
Like, this is what we've got to be. And the emphasis on us was like, get comfortable being uncomfortable, because you don't know what could happen in New Zealand. Like, even if it's just like the hotel we think we're staying in, something's happened, so we have to change locations. Like, it could have been anything, and that can just throw you off course slightly. So like that was like our mindset going into preseason: just get comfortable being really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And like week 4 of the first block, they took us to Merthyr Mawr. Have you been there before by any chance?
No, unfortunately. I'll write it down though. I'll go. If it's worth going, I'll be there.
Oh, it's horrific. It's just
okay, I won't write it down.
It's not worth it. Just these horrific sand dunes in Wales, and just we had to just run up them.
Sprints,
and just do challenges up them, and like your quads go before anything else. But it's just awful. So like they made us do stuff like that, and like just proper get us out of our comfort zone. Like, every Friday we would go off site and do like a challenge. So we went like this place called Green Mile, and we had to carry like a log around a mountain, and it just like nothing rugby related, but like just really uncomfortably hard. Yeah, so that was kind of what preseason was about. Like, it was basically survival of the fittest, like who can not break.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was hard.
That sounds terrible. How is it then when the squad starts getting whittled down? How are the feelings when that's going on? Like, are the girls like, are you talking in the group being like, oh, I think like I know nobody's going in with the mindset thinking, oh, today's my last day in camp. But
yeah,
like, do you hear like rumors start, like the whispers start creeping into the changing room before sessions?
Well, our squad didn't get whittled down until like everyone trained fully until we played England on a Wednesday. Test my memory. Everyone was training up until I think the week before.
Okay.
And obviously we all had a phone call on the Friday after we played England, if you were in the squad or not. And then obviously we had Saturday and Sunday to just kind of, everyone could just digest the news they had, whether good, bad, whatever. And then obviously we were back in on the Monday.
So did you do a lot of like calling on the Saturday, Sunday then, or were we just, I'm just going to see who's there on the Monday type thing?
I can't really remember how it was, to be honest. Like,
because I would be terrified to phone people in case they hadn't got the same news
I know. This is the thing. Like, do you text someone to be like? I think the only good thing for us was, not good thing, that sounds really bad, but like the only thing was like we knew out of everyone that was training, I think it was only 5 people that weren't selected. I think it was 5. So like it wasn't like loads of people. It wasn't like 20 odd people. Yeah. Like there was only 5, and I think obviously we had like a preseason week in Canada, and you know everyone. I think everyone had an opportunity to play, whether you played Canada or played England. Like everyone had an opportunity to play a test game before selection. But yeah, obviously then that Monday came, and we were like, oh, so and so's not here. So and so's also not here, and it was just like. Yeah, it's a tricky one, because obviously no one wants to do 8 weeks of preseason to not then get selected to go. It's like you've done all that hard work, and it's almost like, oh, not for what, but because like you've given your best efforts. But it's like it was probably the hardest 4 weeks of my life, and I think if I had the phone call that I wasn't going, like I would have been devastated. Yeah. So it's just then. You got to have like sympathy for the girls that didn't make it, because it was a slog, like.
No, like you said, there's probably very few worse feelings.
Yeah.
But I think the way you would probably have to look at it, and it's very easy for me to tell somebody to look at it this way, but you have to think the team would not be as good if you hadn't been at the camp pushing.
Yeah.
It's probably the way you have to think about it. And I'm pretty sure the girls that did go would appreciate it.
Yeah,
Because you would have been driven by people that didn't get to go.
yeah, like the level of like competition we had heading into like the England game and things like that, like you didn't know if like you were safe essentially, like you like genuinely didn't know if you were going to be going or not. And I think that's like the kind of level of competitiveness that we want to keep building. Like you don't know if you're going to be selected, like no matter how many caps you've got, you genuinely don't know. And it is like a fear factor that, but I think it's good to have, because like you will not get complacent then. If you think there's an opportunity for someone to get your jersey, you're not going to be complacent. And that's probably something that we've not necessarily had in the past, is that level of competition.
Yeah.
So now that we're starting to build that, hopefully then everyone kind of ups their own game, and then that'll just make us better overall as a squad.
Well, I couldn't agree more. And like you said, as people just get better, there's no other option but for the team to grow in success and performance. So talk to me now. You've been selected. You're on that natural high. When did you feel it was safe to tell people you were going to the World Cup? Like, when did you phone Liz and Richard and be like, got some good news?
As soon as I got off the phone to Johan on the Friday, I rung them to tell them.
Like, please don't post it till Monday. But
yeah, I was like, you're not allowed to tell anyone until it's announced officially. But like, I don't think like I was subconsciously thinking, like, I don't know whether it was like because I've had like past experiences with injuries or something. I was like, if something's going to go wrong, it's going to be this week. Because like we found out on the Friday, and then we had a week of training before flying on Friday. So we had like 5 days of like the intensity in training didn't drop off at all, because we were still prepping to play Scotland in week 1. So, and I just thought, like, if something bad's going to happen, like this is the week that is going to happen in. And I was just on edge the whole week, and I probably didn't relax until I got home Thursday night, and I was like, right, I haven't got to train until I actually get to New Zealand now. So that's probably when I felt like relaxed and safe. I was like, okay, I'm on the plane. We can relax a bit now.
Yeah, I'm just going to enjoy the 24-hour of travel to a slog.
Yeah. Oh God, no.
Are you like iPad, neck pillow, eye cover?
I'm an eye mask kind of gal.
I like that.
But I don't find the neck pillows that comfy. But I slept on Alicia for the majority of the way there, to be honest. I was like, come on.
I like a light the second the wheels came out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, sleeping tabs. I only woke up for food.
That's the best way to be. On a flight like that, that's the best way to be.
Yeah, I know.
Right. I'm putting it off, but we're going to have to talk about it. Right. Okay. You had... there was the game. It took place. New Zealand, couple of 10,000 people watched it. No big deal. Unfortunately, the result, for the context of this interaction, the result went the way we wanted. How was that? Can you talk us through the emotion of that? Yeah, I'm just playing it. I'm just being an arsehole. It's a monumental achievement. It was the first World Cup game. How was that game for you? Like, how was the build up to that?
It was a long build up. I think kickoff was like 5:15, isn't it? So like obviously when we were out with New Zealand, we had the day to just kind of, I don't know, it was weird. Like evening kickoffs are like like the day just builds, and you're like, oh my God, and you go from, well, we do anyway, like the way our schedule was that day was like we had nothing until like 2:30, 3 o'clock, and then from then everything was like, right, it's 100 miles an hour. So in that period of doing nothing, I was like, oh, like what can I do to just not think about the game? And obviously, like luckily enough, like obviously games were played before us, so we had a chance to watch I think USA and Italy was the first game. So like we had a chance to like watch that, and then by the time the next game was on, we were doing our walkthroughs and having our pre-match meal, and you're kind of then in the zone, like okay, now we're playing now as well, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think like the bus journey to the stadium, like Shania's on, like it's happy days. And yeah, like
that would strike fear into the heart of gold if I watched the bus of women's rugby players arrive to "Let's Go Girls."
Oh my God, that is my jam. Yeah.
Well, I've seen people react to that song, and I think there's cage fighters less intimidating than like. You see, if there's like I have like a few female friends at uni, and you see when they just gone through a breakup, if they were playing Shania Twain, I was like, I'm not getting involved in anything you do today. Yeah, like, you're on your own because you're obviously about to kill somebody, so I'm just going to leave you to it.
Yeah, that's what I go to, I think. But as long as I get Shania on in a playlist, I'm good to go. So
Lovely.
Yeah, it was weird because obviously like the stadium that we were in, obviously there was essentially 6 teams there at one point. Like I think USA were leaving as we were arriving, and Italy and stuff. So you're kind of crossing over with other teams a little bit. Like the warm-up pitch was a bit of a trek. So like, whereas you don't normally get that either. Like when you're just playing Six Nations or something, like you're warming up on the pitch you're playing on.
Yeah.
Or like in a World Cup, like we obviously weren't allowed to do that. So like it's all these factors and stuff that you don't necessarily think about until you're there, and you're like, oh, like it's a little bit of a change routine. And I just like, obviously because I was on the bench for that game, I knew the chances of me having to goal kick were quite slim. And then as the game was developing and I was like, oh, we're actually scoring tries, I was like, and Snowy was kicking well. So I was like, if she comes off and we're still scoring tries, then I am going to have to kick. So luckily I got some kicks in the warm-up, and yeah, I was striking them quite well. And then, yeah, the rest is the rest, really.
You're allowed to talk about it. I'm not going to like end the recording. So because that game was it was a very different game in the way that you very much were in the ascendancy in the first half.
Yeah, massively.
Massive ascendancy in the first half, and then Scotland came back into it.
Yeah.
So how was like? You must have been, not because nothing's ever done and dusted in rugby, but you must have been feeling quite good. Obviously, like you said, you didn't start the game, so you must have been watching it from the sidelines, going, "Yeah, like the pre-season's paid off. Like we've took everything we practiced and brought it here." So then, how was the emotions as you were like, "I'm going to come on," and you're watching Scotland surmount this immense pressure, and you're watching the scoreline slowly come back together?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, like you said, like we had put everything that we had done the weeks before arriving, and then obviously the week that we were there, like obviously our sole focus was just Scotland, and like obviously you watch like footage and themes and stuff like that, and we kind of knew where we could kind of, in the nicest way possible, like kind of pick them apart a little bit. And obviously I'm sure they thought the same about us. Like it's just how rugby is, isn't it? Like every team's got weaknesses.
Yeah.
So we kind of knew like if we attacked a certain way, and we worked massively on our kicking game heading into that game, like attacking kicks and stuff, and it paid off for us. Like we knew that it was always going to be close though. Like you've only got to look at our Six Nations games in the past like couple of years. Like I think this year we just about won, like last minute won, and they were quite dominant in the Six Nations when it came to us. So yeah, to watch the scoreline like get closer and closer. Like I think when I came on, it was 15-5, and I was like, okay, we've still got dominance in the game with regards to the scoreboard. Like, but we were just constantly in our half. We absorbed so much pressure from Scotland, and obviously when they scored to get to 15-10, I was like, oh right, okay, like. It's not looking good, is it? And then, like, Meg Gaffney, like, she's a brilliant finisher. You give her like that much time and space, and she's gonna finish it. Like, she's a world-class finisher for a reason. I think I actually couldn't tell you what necessarily went wrong for us. Like, I think our discipline was like pretty poor in the second half. Like, and I don't know whether we see in the scoreboard and we're like, oh, it's 15-0. Like, Scotland haven't necessarily looked like scoring. So for them to score 3 tries in the last like 15, 20 minutes is a big ask. But obviously they did it. And I just remember Helen Nelson has obviously had a kick from the touchline to win it. But like, you know, when you're just so oblivious as to what's happening, I didn't know that if she'd kicked it, I didn't know that we would have lost. Like, I was so oblivious to score, and then I was just like, obviously, I knew we needed, like, a draw would have been pointless for us, and it would have been pointless for Scotland. Like, I think Fiji would have gone through or something if the game ended in a draw, and I was like, okay. And then we managed to regain possession off the kickoff, and for us, I think it was literally just keep ball. Just keep ball. Someone is going to make a mistake. Like, it could have been us. Like, because you are desperate at that sort of time. Like, you know, we could have
like you said as well, everybody's trying to win. Like, nobody's playing to kick the ball out. Yeah.
No, exactly. Like, so many things like could have gone against us. Like, we could have given a penalty away for going off our feet. Like, we had already had a yellow card at this point. I think Jazz was in the sin bin. So, like, there were so many factors that could have gone wrong for both teams. And you're just like, who is going to break first? Like, luckily, we managed to keep the ball for like 20 plus phases and get into a fairly good position. And then I think it was Hannah Smith give a penalty away for being offside. And
it's a shame. It was never... I love Hannah Smith so much. She's been on this pod. I love her. I
get on with Smithy as well. So like, that's not a dig, I swear. But like, and I've been in her position. Like, that was me in Italy in the Six Nations. Like, I was the one who gave the penalty away for being offside. So I sympathise massively with her. So yeah, it was never an option for us to kick to the corner. We knew we had like I knew myself, and I'm like Robin as well. Like, we knew we had the range in us. Like, that wasn't necessarily an issue. It was more the pressure, like who could deal with the pressure the most, really, like, because like it wasn't a hard kick. Like, when you like, if I would, like, if you go down the park, like, most people would kick that. Like, it was just the environment it was in. Like, it's 15-all, it's against Scotland, it's the first game of the World Cup. Like, it was all them, like, external factors is what like added the pressure. But yeah, I think it was just like, it's a bit of a blur. Like, I just went through my process that I've done, like, since kicking, really. Just went through that, and I knew I had struck it well. It was just a case then of had I lined it up properly, because the wind was a bit of a nightmare. So it was just like, if I've lined it up well and I strike it well, like, I know it's going to go over. And like, it didn't think to me, like, if I miss this, like, the game is done. Like, that didn't necessarily come to me. It was just like, just kick it and we've won. So that's kind of what I did. But I've not told anyone this, but like, the week leading up to that game, like, obviously I'd like go through goal kicking after training and stuff, and I was having an absolute shock off the tee. But like, no one knows this. Like, I've not spoken to anyone about it. But like, to the point where like I had literally like done a couple of kicks. I was like shanking them to the left, shanking them to the right. Like, it was awful. And to the point where I literally picked up my tee and I just threw it to the side of the pitch. And our backs coach Whiff was like, I think it's the time you called it a day now, because like that's how bad it was going for me. And I was just getting so frustrated with it. But then something obviously clicked in the warm up, and I think that's what gave me the confidence. If I was kicking poorly in the warm up, I wouldn't have put my hand up for it.
No,
because it's too risky, in it. Because if I'd missed it, like, you look silly, don't you? If you're like, especially a penalty, if you're like kick it and then you missed, you look silly because you're in control of it. Whereas a conversion, no one can really shout at you for missing a conversion because you can't really control where it is on the pitch. Like, a penalty, you can opt to not go for it. So I was like, I'm gonna have to go down. But yeah, I have, yeah. There we are. There's a bit of insight for you. No one knows that I was kicking like a pleb.
I might just make that the title.
Yeah, it was awful, honestly.
Pleb to match winner in 24 hours.
Yeah, that was me.
I can't believe it. And then how was the emotion? Like the second you hit it, did you know it was going through the sticks, or did you actually have to watch it and be like, please go through?
I think I knew it was going to go over, but I was looking at it and I was like, oh, like it's actually gone over. And then like before the ref had a chance to like blow a whistle and whatever, like all the girls just swamped me. So like that's a blur. Like soon as I kicked it, I was like, oh my God, I'm only small and I've got about 13 girls on top of me. Like, you know, so yeah, but like it was obviously like someone was always going to win that game. Like I said, like none of us would have wanted a draw. Like that could have very easily, like we could have felt how Scotland felt, like very easily, to be honest. Like, because I don't think Helen Nelson missed that conversion by much, did she? Like it was literally like marginal, wasn't it?
Marginal.
So, like it could have very easily have gone the other way. And yeah, God.
How was the emotion for the team? Obviously, like you said, there was obviously nearly a 50-man pile up, plus however many Welsh people were brave enough to storm the pitch. But how was that emotion when you got back into the changing room? Was it like pure relief, or was it just like jubilation? Because it must be quite tough to celebrate a victory like that, knowing full well you've got another game in 3 days or so, 3-4 days.
Yeah, like for me personally, it was just massive relief. I was like, okay, like we knew that if we wanted to progress in the tournament, we knew that obviously Scotland was a must win, and then obviously that Australia game as well. We were targeting, but we didn't really know much about Australia. So we knew we definitely had to win one of them, and then obviously if we could have got the W against Australia, like that would have been happy days for us. But like just pure relief. Like it was long-winded, wasn't it? And like I think to the fact that we knew we had the Black Ferns up next in Auckland in their home World Cup, like it was kind of hard to get like too carried away. Just given who we were playing next, like, you know, the world champions, their home World Cup, like it was always going to be a tough test for us. But the fact that we got to play them twice, like it was just such a cool experience. And yeah, some people don't get to face the Haka once, let alone twice, in the space of like 3 weeks. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
Oh, we're going to talk. Don't worry, I'm going to talk to you about the Haka because facing that. But so how was like the coach team talks, like, you know, like the post changing room team huddle when everybody's back in the changing room? You know, there's reckless amounts of tape just being flung off across the changing room when people are. There's that one person screaming because they managed to catch the hairs on the back of their leg, and they're like, "This is the most painful knee strapping ever." How was like the team talks? Was it a really emotional changing room, or was it like a prideful changing room after that game, the Scotland one?
Yeah, it was pretty emotional. I think a bit of both. Like it was definitely emotional because in the way in which we had to win it in the end, given how it looked at half time to how it ended. It was like, okay. But yeah, like Johan's very honest with us. And I think he's very good at like reflecting post games, like a couple of days after. So obviously we had the initial like review in the change rooms about like where we were as a squad. But then we had like a more in-depth review like a couple of days later when we reviewed the game. And we knew that there was a lot of elements of that game that we needed to be better at. Discipline is a massive one for us as a squad. And like it has been for a while, to be fair. Like I think if we could sort our discipline out, like, you know, we'd stand much better chances at winning test matches. But yeah, just a lot to work on. But also like he didn't take away the hard work that went into that performance either, because sometimes you have just got to find a way to win and grind it out, and it's just the nature of how the game goes. But we don't make it easy for ourselves as a squad, like no chance.
I love that. We make it as difficult as we can by accident, but we get
Yeah,
there in the end.
exactly. You'd think we'd learn, like in Six Nations, like the Italy game, the Scotland game as well, and even the Ireland game, like the three games that we probably set a marker out to win,
Yeah.
we make so difficult to win. And, you know, it's a combination of both, isn't it? It's like, it's yourself making it difficult, but then obviously you've got to credit opposition because they're not going to just lay down and like,
Yeah.
you know, Scotland probably, I don't know what Scotland's team talk was like at half time, but I'd imagine it probably wasn't a good one, because I'm assuming they probably looked at us and thought it's a winnable game as well, because like you're at a World Cup, like you, and the nature of it, you do set out games you want to win in your pool stages. So yeah, it's just, yeah, I don't know. It's just it's an interesting one, isn't it? Like,
It's just inspiring. I just love to hear how the team has to go for that mentality, because you have such elation of a win and something you've worked for. Like you said, when you label something as a winnable game, you then get that, so you've achieved the goal. But then, like we say, we fast forward 4 days, and we're looking at facing the most informed women's team, arguably one of the best collective squads ever assembled in the women's game.
Yeah.
On their home turf, capital city, their home World Cup, not even just a home game for them.
Yeah.
And then you're facing a haka in the most viewed World Cup of all time for women's rugby. Did that feel, how did that feel when you're stood across the line from them? Did it feel just like it was sort of like, they say that the haka has an aura. Did it feel like it was just growing in front of you while they started their dance?
Yeah, like I've faced the haka 3 times now, and obviously twice at that World Cup, in the 2017 World Cup, and still, like, it's a bit of an, like, it sounds weird, but like, it is a bit of an honor to face it, because it is they have such an aura about them, and you know, they're all great individual rugby players, but as a team, like, where you just had to look at the final, like, as a team, they're just something pretty special, especially the journey that they had, like, pre-World Cup with their head coach and stuff. And like, you just got to admire that. But like, the worst team to play on the pitch, but then probably one of the nicest teams off it. Like, we shared a hotel with them. Like, when we went back up to Whangarei, we were in the same hotel as them, because they were obviously playing Scotland and we were playing Australia the same day. And just like, we seen them around the hotel, and just like, what nice, like a nice bunch of girls they were, like. And I think that says a lot about a rugby team, when they can be that like successful and dominant on the pitch, but then off it, they can be lovely as well. Like, I think that just shows you what rugby is about as well. Like 2 days ago, they're beating us up, and like today they're just like saying hi and having a chat and stuff. And I guess it's just really nice.
It's something terrifying about that as well, when people have that.
Yeah.
I noticed the Mamba mentality from Kobe Bryant, but it's like, as soon as they put on a specific jersey and they just switch, and you're like, that is a different person in the same body to the person I saw 2 days ago. Yeah,
100%. Like, they flip a switch and they're just like a different breed. And they're like, probably, I think that quarterfinal is probably the hardest game of rugby I've played to date. Like, it was horrific, but it was the hardest, but the most enjoyable game of rugby I've ever played.
Wow.
Like,
that's a statement there.
Yeah, like, and at half time, I was dying. Like, I was in a world of pain, but I was like, I can't wait out. Like, I can't wait to just go back out and do it for like another 10, 15 minutes.
Did you have that mentality? Like, I know the girls are on the bench, so I can just go full boom for 50, and then that's me, or?
Yeah, like that, like the situation like me and Fee have at the minute, like, it was like, if she was starting, like, I knew I'd probably come around the 50-minute mark, and vice versa kind of thing. So I knew after half time, I was like, right, you've got 10, 15 minutes, like,
make it memorable.
It's going to be probably the last 10, 15 minutes of this World Cup. Just and just go out and enjoy it.
Mm.
And that's definitely what I think I did. Like, I just loved it in the weirdest way.
But I love that though. I love that it's like, because we spoke a lot about how sport became professional for you, and then it stops being the fun; it becomes the breadwinner. But you're still sat there going, "This is great. I'm loving every second of this."
Yeah. It is. I love it, and I'm so excited to hopefully get back in a Welsh jersey, come March, and like the Six Nations is a great tournament, so I'm hopefully excited to be able to do that again.
I can't wait. And if I'm any good at scheduling stuff, I'll probably try to put this around the week where you're actually up in Scotland. So it'll be a lot closer than we think when this one sees the light of day. But there we go.
Yeah.
At least everybody will know you'll have been working hard when they listen to this. Well, there's no doubt that Keira's up for it. Yeah, we know Keira's up for it. But let's talk about that World Cup as a whole. Obviously, it was one of the big stories of that World Cup was the World Cup itself, and everybody's watching it, everybody's talking about it. Did you feel that increase as well when you got back to Wales and you got back to the UK? Were you like, oh, not like I'm walking around the town and people are going, oh, that's Keira Bevan. Like, have you noticed this now as the game grows? Like, are you noticing that attention, that recognize you're getting recognized now a bit more?
Yeah, I think so. Like I'm since coming back from the World Cup, like I had massive tour blues. So a couple of us went to Barcelona for a few days, just like
a bit of R&R.
bit of R&R, switch off, before coming back into club and stuff. And then obviously, like, me and Gwen moved out and bought the house here, or renting the house here, sorry. And but when I go back home, even now, like if I went to Tesco's with my mum, because I love a trip to Tesco's with my mum.
I love a shop.
I like people even now, like, what is it, like 3 months since the World Cup or since the Scotland game, whatever, people are still saying to me about the kick, and I'm like, oh God. Like, I don't
talk about it again.
So and people, the common question I get asked is like, are you feeling, you fit? And I'm like, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll be fine.
Definitely people just like, especially like local, because obviously where I'm from and stuff, people just know me anyway.
As I say, quite a small town, like the actual. I think you're from the actual village.
Villages in Wales are so small, like everyone knows anyone anyway. So like when they're putting Facebook posts up about you and stuff like that, like obviously people are then going to ask. So yeah, no one asks me up here because no one has a clue who I am. So which is fair enough. I don't know.
I like it. I like being able to go to the Tesco shop and not get hounded.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm so glad. And then, so we've now spoken about history. We've touched on it a bit. 2023 Six Nations, like you said, it has the potential to be. I don't like to say it has the potential because I'm pretty confident it's going to happen, but I don't get to influence Johan's decision. It's going to be a big one for you personally with the 50th cap potential.
Yeah,
I have to say potential because I don't want to jinx anything.
I'd
hate to see on Instagram the next day, you're like, oh no, injury, and I'm like, good one, Sam, you've ruined that for us. How's the goal for Wales and yourself personally for this tournament coming up? Obviously, this is the first proper one as pro.
Yeah, I think.
Or the whole squad as a pro. Sorry, you've had a contract, but
yeah. So it's obviously going to be different. Like we're going to be like, obviously last year Six Nations, like I touched on it, like we were still training in the evenings. So this is the first one where everyone will be in during the day. And like I said, like that's what I found most beneficial in pre-season. So it'll be good to like have the same sort of structure as that. And I think as a squad, I think we're like, obviously with the XV15 coming up in October, I think it is. I think I've got that right. The name of it. With that coming up in October, like we know we could either be going to Hong Kong or South Africa.
Yeah.
So for us, it's about like we want to finish top 3 again. We obviously did that last year. It's like we scraped the barrel last year by doing it, but obviously we had a really good start to the tournament last year and probably didn't finish the way we wanted to. So we're like, obviously we're going to be looking to do the same sort of thing again. And yeah, hopefully go to the top tier then of the X15 is probably the goal for us as a squad. But I'm sure Ireland and Scotland and Italy and everyone else is also in that as well. So it's a weird one, isn't it? But yeah, obviously that's what we want.
The X15, so the X15 is clearly the goal, but do they? So you mentioned there, it's like you sort of mark winnable games. I think every team does when they go to a competition. They go, this is where we know we need to get something, and this is where we can try to get something.
Yeah.
Do these mindsets change now that you have this pro atmosphere around the team? Like, do you set benchmarks a bit higher, even in terms of, say, fitness as an example? Like, do you now go, so we used to class this as the good time on the bleep test or something, or this on the Bronco. We now want this level. This is what we set as the new standard type thing.
Yeah, I think we've definitely got our standards have naturally gone higher, especially like me personally, from where I was in pre-season. I'd kind of like to get back to that level as well. Like, obviously when you're in competition, it's kind of hard to, I don't know, like keep, like, I don't want to say like keep your weight down and stuff, but like when you're in pre-season, it wasn't easy, like the way the training was, but like when you're in competition, you're fueling for matches. So you have to kind of like up your calories a little bit, up your carb intake, just so you can survive 80 plus minutes of rugby. So I think just like kind of getting back to that sort of level for me, but also not then obviously like losing too much weight and getting injured and, you know, being like, I don't want to underperform. So for me, it's about trying to find like that happy balance and that happy medium going into Six Nations again, where I can tick all the boxes kind of thing, you know? So it's quite difficult.
I mean, so I always find this really interesting because we'll cut that. The good thing about recording podcasts in the morning, everybody has that morning voice. So I always find it really interesting. So when we spoke about it for the World Cup as well, you sort of like, you aim to peak. But the problem with the Six Nations is it's a 7-week competition, 6-week competition. Yeah. So do you guys, because obviously your two big ones are Ireland at home on the first game. Are you guys sort of aiming to peak there, or do you guys like sort of go to peak in the middle of the tournament? Because I always find that would be quite an interesting talking point for your S&C coaches and things like that.
Yes, it is a tricky one, isn't it? Like, and it's kind of hard to know when to peak because we're all still playing prem matches as well, and we're going to be playing, I think, up until maybe a week before the competition. So like, it's a difficult one, but our middle of the competition is France and England. So I'm like, oh, it's a tricky one to peak for, isn't it? And obviously, like, we've got Ireland, Scotland first up and second up. So like, they're probably the ones that we're gonna want to peak for. And then like, obviously we don't know like what's going to happen when we play England and France. Like, we've got France away, which is probably one of the most difficult tests to go, like, to play France away in France. Well, obviously France away in France, but yeah, like, it's
you never know anymore. People put games on all over the world.
No, you don't have, yeah. So like, it's probably one of, like, for me, one of the hardest places to go and play. Like, it's loud. They've got a band, and it's just like, oh, you're trying to like have a conversation with your 10 or whatever, and you've just got some guy banging a drum, and it's like, oh, I can't cope. So it is.
So would you like a band in the Welsh stand, or would you be like, guys, come on, I'm trying to communicate here?
We don't get like 10,000 plus people, so I think it's a combination of both. Like, it's the guy with the drum, but then like the sellout crowd as well. Like, they just add to each other. It's just a headache.
There you go. So the method is here, listeners. If we sell out the ground, Keira says you're allowed to bring a drum. That is it. But you have to sell out the ground.
No instruments, thank you.
I want to see your faces. I don't want to see instruments.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Keira, I've taken up a lot of your time already this morning, but I could talk to you for hours and hours. So there's only a final few things to go through. The one question that we've now started talking about, so as you can see, crudely edited on the board behind you, refuse to fail.
Yeah.
So this came about where I found a quote that I'd never heard in passing, but it managed to stick with me, which you know when it's probably a good quote when you're not looking for it and you find it. And it
Yeah.
was, the want to succeed is what everybody has. The want to succeed is no longer enough. You have to refuse to fail.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
can you think of a moment in your career or your journey where you went, this is my sort of refuse to fail moment, like I'm going all in on this?
Probably when I came back from my hamstring and then did my ankle. I was like, this is just a nightmare. And I think that is probably, like, I probably found that to date the hardest part in my career so far, just because they were back to back, and like we had a new coach with Wales at the time, Warren, and he had never seen me play. So I was like, he actually doesn't really know anything about me. He's brought in 3 new nines. I was like, oh, like it was just like a lot of things going around in my head. And I was like, I don't know. But then, yeah, I thought like the ball is still in my court. Like, I just need to just do me, get my ankle right, go back to Bristol and play well, hopefully. And then I think that's when I kind of then had a pretty good season with Bristol. And like obviously Leanne Infante signed for Bristol as well last season. I was like, oh, brilliant. I've got the English 9 to contend with as well. I was like, oh. So I think probably like them 3 things, like the hammy, the ankle, and then like obviously it's not Leanne's fault, don't get me wrong, but like her coming obviously. Yeah, and she's been England's starting scrum half for however long now. So like obviously it's gonna be a tough slog, you know, having that competition week in, week out. And I just saw if I can get a couple of starts for Bristol or like and get good game time off the bench, like I knew I would be in a good spot moving forward, and I could like kind of have that in my back pocket then as well when it came to like selection with Wales. I'm like, well, so that year was a testing one, to say the least.
It's inspirational though, and I think your journey through this conversation has really shown that there is people can take a lot away from you. You've had a lot of adversities thrown at you, like you say, in a time not only have you dealt with 2 major injuries, but you've watched the coach bring in 3 new people in your position. So like you're a testament to adversity, and now like you're winning penalties in World Cups. Like, that's perseverance right there. So I think it's really good, and like I said, I've enjoyed this conversation so much. I can't wait to hopefully see you in Scotland. I'll definitely try clamber over a fence for a pitch side selfie at the very least. But
yes.
Lovely to catch up, and that is this one's a bit of fun for you because it's no longer about you. You don't have that pressure of answering about yourself. You just have to deal with the fact you're going to get a lot of text when we go through the creatively named segment of Under the Team Bus, because we're about to throw some people under the bus.
Okay.
Very similar to your quickfire questions. First name that comes into your head, just rattle it off. So, for example, these are all people you've ever played with on the team more than you've played against. Okay, so people you've played with. Right. Who is the most determined you've ever played with? Like, who has just got wiry focus and grit?
Probably. It's meant to be quick fire, isn't it?
No, an honest answer is better than a quick one.
Okay. So. Most grit. What is it, like a workhorse?
Just like determined, like you think like they could be down like 38-0 and they're just like, I'm gonna win this game.
Oh, like Alex Callender.
Alex Callender.
Yeah.
Lovely. Who's the biggest practical joker in the changing room or at the training?
Donna Rose.
Who is the most naturally skillful rugby player you've ever played with? Like somebody like walks into training and they just throw a 30-yard bomb as if it's nothing.
Flaky George. Easy. Easy.
Who is the most clumsy? Who's the person that's always like tripping over their shoelaces or dropping their phone?
Meg Webb.
Who is most up for a night out? Like, who's the person that is like, we've had a run-of-the-mill training session, better celebrate and get on the fruit shoes?
Alcal and Neve Terry.
I love that. I love when any team has 2 people that are just like night out fiends. That's when you know you're in a good club. Who has the best fashion sense? Who turns up and was like, "Where'd you get that?"
Ooh, probably Shu and Lily Crap. I like Shu An's dress sense. Yeah.
Love that. She a Crocs and socks extraordinaire, no?
She has worn Crocs and socks before, yeah.
She has got the best fashion sense. Then I back it.
She's got expensive taste. I think that's what it is.
Ooh la la.
Yeah.
Who, vice versa, has the worst fashion sense?
Jasmine Joyce.
Really? Dressed in the dark?
I think so, Yeah.
She probably hits her wardrobe at 20 miles an hour or something, to be fair to her, so it's just whatever she can do. Who is the most gullible in the squad? Like, who just believes anything people tell them?
Karen Lake and Meg Webb.
Really? Meg Webb's getting sold a dream.
Yeah, I know.
Who is the best dancer? Like, who's the one two-stepping in the changing room after a win?
Ooh, Al Cal's a pretty good dancer. Kelsey's a good dancer as well. Yeah.
Good, love that. Who is the worst dancer? Who's the one where it's like, you should just stay at the table when we're in the club?
Me.
Are you a bad dancer? What's your go-to move?
Well, I just like a two-step, But
that's not bad dancing. Two-step's not bad dancing.
Yeah, but if like you had to actually like go for it and dance, I wouldn't know where to start. Do you know what I mean?
I don't think many people. Nobody wants to be that guy where they start busting out like the scene from Usher. Like everyone's like, you're trying too hard.
I'm not a confident dancer, so I would just stand there.
Oh.
I think that's what it is. I think it's confidence. Whereas the others are confident, yeah.
If you're doing the lamppost of standing perfectly still, then we'll give you worst dancer.
Yeah.
Who is the future coach? Who's like when you're walking around training session, like this person's just constantly giving bits of advice, and you've got coach written all over you?
Shuan is coach material.
Mm-hmm.
I think Sinead would be a pretty good coach as well. Like she knows the game like inside out. She's a very smart player, so I think she would make a good coach.
I love that. Who is hard as nails? Like who, if people start fighting, you want them stood behind you? Like as a scrum half, you're normally a bit nippy, so who do you always make sure stood behind you when you start giving it the big licks?
Well, Sinead and Al Cal. I would want them.
Did you just look around and be like, right, they're there, just like I'll just tap somebody on the head, like, well done.
Yeah, I think when me and Sarah Bonner had like a little bit of a roll around on the floor in the Scotland game, and then as soon as I stood up, like Sinead just came from nowhere and like just started scrapping, and I was like, oh, there we are.
That's not a conflict of interest because Sarah Bonner's my pal. I love Sarah Bonner. Stop picking fights with all my ex-podcast guests. That'd be really helpful. Anybody else, you're fine, but just do a quick bit of recon first. But right, they're up on this, and I'll send you a list. I'll be like, these people, no.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Where did I get to? Oh, this is more for guys. I feel that this happened, but who came in with a noticeably bad lockdown haircut? Like who cut panic bangs or something like that?
A bad haircut. Donna's hair is interesting. Short back and side she's got, and she was gonna grow a mullet and then have a skinhead. So I think that probably goes to her. I think
that's a bold choice. Yeah.
Yeah.
I respect it. To be fair, to have that much control, I'm just gonna rock this. Yeah. Okay, getting near the end now. Who's the most natural athlete you've ever played with? Like, who's just got more like could complete Ironmans if they decided they wanted to tomorrow?
Lisa Newman.
Really, just
engine. Yeah.
Loves
CrossFit.
Oh, I'm jealous. We don't have one near me, but I'd love to do it. But then I see the videos and I think I could never do that.
Yeah, not me.
Who has got the best tunes? Like, who's somebody that you'd like to see have the iPod before the game or after the game?
Okay, so Gwen Crabb would like to think she is good, but her music choices aren't necessarily everyone else's music choices.
Right.
But she has to be on music, like in the gym, in the change room. Like it's got to be her, which I'm not entirely on board with. But I just get on with it.
I just have to get off with this now.
Yeah.
Right, and finally, last question: who hogs the mirror the most post game? Who knows they've got an interview with BBC coming up?
Post game.
Like spends a little bit, a bit too much attention on the mascara post game.
Karen Lake.
Really?
Yeah.
I love that.
She'll be doing eyebrows like before the game, eyebrows after the game.
The cameras are there. You've got to be prepared.
Yeah, they all tan as well. Like, so like Al Cal, Meg Webb, Neve, they'll all fake tan the day before. Georgia Evans actually as well. She's got to be in the mix for that.
Well,
Loves
you have survived under the team bus, and we now know that there is a tanning adhesive sponsorship opportunity for the Welsh national team as well. So that's good to know.
I think Saint-Tropez, I think.
Saint-Tropez, is that the one? Is that what they're gunning for? Well,
I think so.
I'll see what I can do. I have connections in the weirdest places. We'll see if we can make it happen. Keira, this has been, I've said it about 3 or 4 times now, but I've genuinely loved this. This has been great. Final question, then I can let you get on with your day. You've been given the tunes for the first time in a long time after it's not been hogged. You have just won. You've just won the biggest trophy in the world. You've just won the biggest game that's meant the most to the team. You're on a night out. You've been given the task of picking 3 songs to get the team ready for it. What 3 songs and why?
Voulez-vous, ABBA.
Great start. Great start.
Shania Twain.
Thought that would be there.
Like a Woman. Yeah. And then my third would be, I think, Cher, Believe, you know.
Great 3 choice there. That's a real power night you're going for.
Yeah.
You're either going on a night out or you're about to solve like all the problems in the world.
Yeah. 3 absolute bangers there.
I love that. That's great. Keira, where can they follow you on social media to keep up to date with your incredible story as it unfolds?
Probably Instagram. It's the most active one.
Amazing. What's the @
I think it's just Keira Bevan, I think.
Even easier to remember, but for everybody, it will be in the links in the description down below. As always, everything's there that we need to keep up to date. I just need you guys as the listeners to share, follow, retweet, tell your dog, tell your mum, tell anybody you can interest into. If you're in the big shop, tell Keira that you heard her on the podcast and it was amazing. Remember, always refuse to fail. Keep it safe. Keep it sweet. Always been lovely. See you guys again next week. Thank you very much. Goodbye.